Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Relatively Damaged Live. Today is Memorial Day and Kat and I are here to have another discussion. The live shows are currently streamed on Mondays to Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Please remember to follow and or subscribe and share with your friends if something we says is provokes a thought or maybe a new perspective, or share with us so we know that what we're talking about is doing something in this world, which we think it is. But so let's get to, oh yeah, I forgot to say I'm Angela and this is
Kat.
So let's get to today's topic, which is, what does it mean to be free? And Kat has a quote for us today.
I do. But before we get into our quote, I would just like to say something. Thank you to all who have served. Yes. I think it's important to remember that that is one of the biggest causes that we have, so that we are and can practice freedom and have those freedoms outlined in our Constitution and able to practice them in our daily lives. So let's talk about what it means to be free. And our quote is from Robert Augustus Masters. Real freedom, however, is not about having no limitations. Rather, it is about finding liberation within and also through limitation, as when the apparent constraints of a committed monogamous relationship actually enrich and deepen the relationship. Real freedom does not mind limitations, and in fact is not limited by them. Very deep quote.
Very. I mean, because we were talking a lot about the suffering and the, I think I say it right, Uvalde or some Texas.
Yeah.
I did say it right. Yes. And how freedom is impinged on. And I know I remember one of the comments, you had said something about gun control. And then I think I had questioned, what does it mean to be free? And where are those lines? I think that's really what our conversation geared towards, because we all know there's definitely been enough suffering.
And I remember I gave a quote, and I don't have it handy right now, but it was about freedom. With freedom comes responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And, in the quote we just said earlier, it was kind of interesting that he used that example of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Because most people go into marriage, and I'm not saying all, and I'm not making a judgment, but most people go into a marriage with the idea that it's a monogamous relationship, that two people are coming together to have this relationship, have this responsibility to each other. And that may limit, in a sense, their freedom because of the responsibility they have chosen to undertake to each other. Mm-hmm. And so, on Memorial Day, we're talking about we talk about the cost of freedom, those who gave their lives. And, obviously in a marriage, you're not giving a life, but you are giving something up in order to take responsibility, but also to have something. There is a cost, that freedom of having that deeper, enriched relationship when two people are committed to each other and for the benefit of each other.
Yeah. I think what you're saying, I know you have more to say, but I just want to touch on this really quick, is that when I sacrifice something, I'm actually making the thing I'm sacrificing that for sacred. And I think in a relationship with those boundaries, or even in this world with those boundaries, it makes freedom sacred. If I'm going to sacrifice this now, but I'm also free to make decisions and free to say I don't agree with that, or I do agree with that.
Yes, exactly. And this is the interesting thing about freedom. We have, at least when I was growing up, there was this idea of civic duty. I remember we had to actually take a class in civics, and what was that about? And it was about understanding our government and how it works, and the importance of voting, and the importance of all the pieces of the government that are together. And it seems like we've gotten away from that a lot, with the Second Amendment. And I'm not going to necessarily go into that whole topic again, but people seem to think the Second Amendment means the right to bear arms, period.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about having a well-formed militia. If you look at the history of the Second Amendment and why it came about in the formation of the country, that's why we had it. It wasn't so that people could go around and just, buy guns and carry guns, all over the place and everywhere, because we see what happens with that. It's about having that militia. And in a sense, with our police and our National Guard, we have that well-formed militia.
Mm-hmm.
It's my opinion. People may disagree with me on that. And that's okay if you disagree with me on that. I just want to make sure we don't forget that second part of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's not an absolute right. There are very few rights that are absolute.
Yeah, the thing that interestingly that is coming to mind for me in this moment, which I think is just fascinating, is that it actually opens the door. The right to bear arms opens the door to us as a civilization, as a country, being able to say, hey, we don't like this, and we have a right to bear arms. But at the same time, it's like, do I really like that right? I'm not sure if it means, because I guess for me, and I know I'm a little bit unsure on where I stand right now, which I think is fine. Like, yes, we have our military and our police, right? And I feel like they're licensed to carry their arms. But what happens when something goes haywire in our government? What happens? And then how do we know? Like, it's just, which is a very scary thing to think about, right? I don't like that. I like the order that we have. Well, I don't know how much order we have right now, but I like having some lines that say this is okay, that's not okay, and then learning to live within them, because it makes it a lot easier. But what if those lines are inappropriate?
Well, and that's making a judgment on where the lines are to be drawn.
Right.
So let's veer off for a second. The abortion rights.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole impetus to push for abolition of abortion is coming from a religious position. Catholics and evangelicals are pushing this thing. Now, it's coming from this religious position. So you have other groups, for example, in Judaism and Islam, the right of the woman comes first.
Mm-hmm.
And so that has to be a consideration into whether or not an abortion could happen. If the woman is at danger, then under their religious beliefs, it is proper to have an abortion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
To save the life of the mother, of the woman. And so where is that idea of the right coming from?
Well, and I think that our population, people are not having children like they used to anyway. And I think the numbers are shrinking. If the last I looked on births, that are happening. And so I think maybe it could be from another perspective too. I'm not sure. Or maybe those people are calling up those numbers. And again, so how do I tie that into being free? I'm not sure. I'm not sure right now, because I believe I'm free. I should be free to have my body the way it should. But if this rule comes up and now, excuse me, I don't like this rule, or I don't agree with it, or I find it inappropriate, like using the same word I used earlier, I think this is inappropriate. But I can also believe at the same time that within those rules and those guidelines is where I figure out who I am, and what I believe in. So do you see how I'm seeing this from a couple of different perspectives?
Right. There are different perspectives there, and I think what you're saying, in without getting into the argument of the whole birth rate thing, it's weighing different things. Mm-hmm. So, for example, I've used this example before. If I was a cannibal, mm-hmm. and I wanted to eat you, that would, it's very obvious, and it's that would not be cool, right? Because I'd be impinging upon your right for your bodily autonomy in order to do that. So, these rights have to balance each other. And it really occurred to me when I was listening to, some of the response after that. Well, we have to have armed, police in the schools, and we have to have one point of entrance, and everybody has to be in their, barricaded in their classrooms with doors that lock and bulletproof glass and not opening windows and yada, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, so in order for people to be able to buy military grade weapons, we're not talking about a total ban of guns, but we're talking about the weapons ban. We're going to lock up our children and our teachers for 8 hours a day.
Well, not only that.
Lock them up. Lock them up for their safety.
But even more than that, when I hear you say that, what I think of is the fear and anger and dysregulating feelings that we're setting our children and teachers up to live in. And last I checked, that when people are dysregulated like that, they don't learn. You can't even think. You're in panic mode all the time.
We were like that with COVID, mm-hmm. and everybody's rallying against masks and threatening school boards. And people were trying to make a decision with the information that we had for the overall benefit of society, and have a temporary situation, reaction to a temporary situation for public safety. Mm-hmm. And that's it. So look at now, and especially towards the end, as we were coming out of mask mandates and things like that, people were observing the mental health issues because of that. Mm. So here we're talking about not just a temporary thing with people wearing masks and not being able to sit together, but having a situation where people are basically locked up for a period during the day under the auspices of keeping them safe. Mm-hmm. Our children who don't have a voice, mm-hmm. I mean a voting voice.
Right. Well, in many families, I don't think children get much of a voice anyway.
Right. But, we want to talk about freedom. Yeah. And that's the thing. Is that really what we want? Is that really the cost for that? And I mean, I could go in a whole political bent about that, and I'm not going to, about the reasons for that. But freedom comes at a cost for everyone. And if I'm a cannibal and I want to eat you, I have to give up that right to be a cannibal. Right. In order for you to stay free. And I believe people have to give up the right to own assault weapons in order for the rest of us to be free, in order for our children to be free, to have the childhood that you and I had in school.
Right. I am in my mind. I can see, I know, my wheels are turning here because you can see my eyes, I think, moving. So I'm trying to apply this in like a family situation, right? Because I think overall, as a society, that's a larger family, right?
Right.
And so if I'm sitting at home, let's say in a normal family of two adults and a couple of kids or whatever it is, I say normal. I don't know what normal families are anymore. Like I'm just throwing some I guess my bias. Okay. I'm going to admit to it. But let's say one of the adults wants something and the other one doesn't. And they've got this situation where there's a little bit of a conflict, and, they can both see each other's side, but they also cherish what the other person's perspective is, whether or not it's said nicely or not. Both of them cherish the, I'm going to say from clean anger, right? If they're having a discussion and there's some clean anger in there, not some hostile anger. But they both cherish each other's opinions. Then what happens, and how do they come to a final conclusion? And then additionally, let's say that whatever that decision is impacts the children. Well, now we've got the voice of the minority. And do we include that in our family discussions? Because I'm thinking at the most central level, the place where we can teach that freedom and respect of other people's boundaries, or just allowing them to be them, happens. That gets taught in a family environment, and are we giving and taking? Are we allowing a free yes and a free no from the other person, and knowing that sometimes it's not going to be the answer we want?
That's it exactly. And here is the thing. There's a word that you didn't say, but you alluded to: communication.
Yes.
That's what it all comes down to. And a communication, I mean, in a family, it's a lot easier to practice, the loving environment, where my relationship matters to you, as in the quote. So I'm choosing to be monogamous. My children matter to me, and I want to teach them. And I want to make sure that they become, productive, constructive members of society, of the family, of the community, of the overall society. And those kinds of conversations, it's a lot easier just to tell a kid no, or this is the way it's going to be, and not include them, not give them a voice.
Yeah.
Than it is to include them in the conversation. Hey, we're going to go on a family budget. Now, obviously, our family vacation. Obviously, kids don't have the idea of what the budget is and how much it costs, but they can certainly be included.
Yeah.
In that conversation, and what are their likes and dislikes? What do they want to do? Rather than just saying, oh, well, we're going to go, do this.
Right. It's a lot easier.
It is.
To say we're going to go do this, deal with it.
But there it is. Freedom has a cost. And whether it be a cost in lives, and why do wars happen? Because communication breaks down and somebody has to have power over the other. But if we come at it from this whole point that we are all valuable and we really have to listen to each other, and what is that value? Where does that value lie? Right. And then make those decisions and realize there are times that I have to give up something that I want to do. I can't eat you because that would limit your freedom.
You must be really hungry.
I just love the cannibal the aspect because it's so absurd, because nobody, nobody in their right mind thinks cannibalism is okay. It's a thing that we have come to accept, that yes, that is a line we do cross.
Right.
In most societies in the world. I know there's probably a few tribes somewhere who are cannibalistic.
Yeah.
Or there have been. They may have been extinct by now.
Now
but that goes to show that.
Yeah.
So, so with the abortion issue, why do Catholic and evangelicals get the say? Why aren't Jewish and Muslims and the nuns? Why is their beliefs of less value?
Well, and how do we love those people that we don't agree with, right? I can't tell you how many times my kids have said to me something where I wasn't looking for constructive feedback. We weren't talking about anything, but I sure got it. and I needed to sit there in that moment and really see where I could I find this in me, and was it a truth I needed to worry about, or something that I really needed to look at? And a lot of times it was, sometimes it wasn't, right? Sometimes it was just that it was something that they were working with, that they needed to work through. But that freedom to say it, and in those moments, and I'm saying this because you were talking about like the evangelicals and, people you feel are making the decision based on what I'm hearing. I think you feel they are the ones making the decision. And in those moments, the kids, I felt like, were making the decision about who I was, right? And I didn't really like that. And yet I needed to take a look at it and say, okay, well, yeah, this is maybe something I want to work on. So how do I love you in this moment when it's really hard, when what you said hurts me to the core and I don't like it? And then I also still give room for that freedom. It doesn't stop me from saying, hey, this is not okay with me, and using clean anger. And I say clean anger because I think hostile anger is the anger most of us are afraid of, where, the gunmen or domestic violence or abuse and things like that. To me, that would be considered hostile anger. But clean anger says, hey, from a loving place, this is not okay. I don't want, or here are the reasons why it's not okay. Can we come to some sort of an agreement?
Mm-hmm. And that's where that communication comes in. It's about talking about those issues, because often we react in the moment. So, people think, okay, they're in their bubble and with like-minded people or by themselves. And what they have is their thoughts and their ideas and their ways of ordering things in society. And we've talked about confirmation bias and all that kind of stuff. So they're getting all this input. So you as a mom, you've come and you've had these ideas about the way things should be, because especially with underage children living under your roof, if they're not independent, there is some imbalance in power.
Mm-hmm.
You as a parent with children living under your roof, I know you want to have their opinion and you value it and you want to hear it and do that, but ultimately you have the last say.
Yeah, which is interesting. Well, and now that they're older, it's really great because we get to have those conversations, and sometimes it's not coming to a conclusion because we all need to agree to disagree and move forward with whatever choice is on the table.
Well, and that's it. And that is the nature of communication. And so it's so much easier to say, nope, this is the way it's going to be.
Oh, yes. It is so much easier because I did that too.
In the short run.
Yeah.
It's easier in that moment to do that. It's easier to say, well, we're not, let's just lock up the kids in the school and have one point of entry and have armed guards and yada, yada, yada. Then when you start asking all the questions about what does that mean? What does that mean for the mental health of the kids? What does that mean for the taxes in society? How much more people do you have to hire for that? What are the contingencies? You look at what happened in Texas, the contingencies, these people had training and did that, and they admitted that there were multiple failures across the board.
Right. I'm just
led to the perfect storm of that happening.
Yeah.
So
but I'm also wondering, like, isn't Detroit one of those places, or there are different places around the country that are high in crime and things like that. And what do they, I think LA had some issues. What do they do there? How did they shift the dynamic? And was it through power and control? Because I don't know that it was. I think it was through getting to know the community. I think it was through connection.
And that was the kind of, defund the police, and which is a horrible choice of words. But what it really meant was investing more in mental health services and community services.
I think it's just really hard, and I
to
know
address
I cut
the root causes, of what's going on.
Yeah. And how do we reach people nowadays? Because with all of the algorithms and different things like that are on all social media, it's not just one or the other, where you see what you like. And once someone gets into that hole or down that path, it just, like, social media just keeps sending the same stuff. Like, so if somebody gets stuck, how do they know? I mean, because even reaching people, so many people, for instance, a lot of people with disabilities like myself are pretty much stuck at home and can't, without assistance, go out and do things. Then there are the other people who are, let's say they've got I think it's agoraphobia, being afraid to go outside, or into crowds or out with other people, or just even being afraid of people, because it's really easy to get stuck in, this is my safe place, if they're used to being at home, and mental health plays such a huge role. And so I think maybe another question would be, how do we reach the community in a loving way? What can we all do? All of us, maybe it's making sure I go say hi to my neighbors. And then which snowballs or ripples into them doing something nice for someone else. Or, I don't think it has to be a huge, big thing. I do think we need responsibility. I do think we need some boundaries. I do think that beyond that, though, how can we get there from love? How can we get there allowing everyone their freedom to say what they believe to be true?
Right. I agree with you. That's the thing. Social media is confirmation bias on steroids. It just confirms over and over. It confirms the idea of separation from everyone else. There's those who are with me, there are those who are against me, and the ones who are against me, we're going to own them.
Well,
rather than saying, let me finish this thought.
Yeah.
Rather than saying, let me understand them, let me come together, let me check my inherent bias against what they're saying. So that's why I'm not defund the police. I think the police have a place in society, and I appreciate the police. I'm thankful for the officers in my community and what they do to help keep this community safe.
Right.
But I don't want armed police officers roaming my streets.
Right. Well, also, I just want to throw this out because this just hit me while you were saying it.
I mean with rifles.
No, I get that, like martial law.
Yes.
But those people who choose to go into law enforcement and into the military literally sacrifice some of their freedoms. They sacrifice their time, their energy, their lives many times, so that others can have.
I look at the Chicago police. All time off has been canceled. I could be wrong about this, but I think they're on 12-hour shifts. So here it is, a Memorial holiday. I enjoyed a wonderful barbecue with friends yesterday. I was able to do that.
Yeah.
Because of this sacrifice that people have made and continue to make in order to keep the community safe. But that is not the only part of the solution. These are complex societal problems, and we have to have complex societal answers. And yes, where do we come from love? Just as within the family, it's easier to say simple solution, boom, this is the way it's going to be. And then all these other problems pop up. If you tell your kids this is how it's going to be and they're not on board, they may do it.
Oh, they would rebel, I'm sure of it.
Well, yeah, especially with the age of your girls. But but yeah, kids will make it a point. I don't want to do it. They're going to make it difficult. And then nobody has freedom because nobody's enjoying themselves, because it's all about that control in that situation. What you thought came to be a good decision. So by bringing these groups of people together who are affected by these problems, whether it be gun violence, whether it be
abortion law,
whether it be economic inequity in different places,
whether it be where we're going on vacation this month or
exactly.
This year.
When everybody has a say and you teach people how to communicate and how to work, and that it's okay to disagree, but we have to do something. And so it might, you might not get your way.
Yeah.
That's part of the cost of freedom.
For everyone, because I like what you said earlier, that there is a cost to everyone when it comes to freedom, not just one person and not just the other person, both people, maybe not in the same conversation or the same choice, right? Like it might be one choice, one person is fine, letting the other person go, and another choice, it might be their turn. And sometimes there might be complete disagreement. But I think that's beautifully said, that freedom comes at a cost, because, sometimes it's us giving freedom to someone else, and sometimes it's them giving freedom to us. And it's a gift.
It is.
A sacrifice, which means it's sacred.
So let's give the gift of freedom to each other.
Yeah. Thank you so much for watching today. I'm Angela.
And I'm Kat.
And we'll see you next week. Happy Memorial.